Welcome back to the Anxious Tradeswoman podcast, where I, your host, Louise as a party, share what I've learned through the years, through the tears, so you don't have to. So this is episode 17, moving on from mistakes. So I talk a lot about mental energy on this podcast. So when we've made a mistake, it is pretty normal for us to play that mistake in our head over and 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 over. You get the idea. So our brain does this because it's trying to get the lesson out of it. So I've spoken about we have our same primitive brain that the caveman had, and that purpose, our brain's sole purpose, right, was to keep us alive. So we needed to learn from mistakes in order to stay alive. Nowadays, that is not the case. If we, spell a word wrong, then we're not going to die. If we break something at work, if we measure something wrong and cut it wrong, it's not life-threatening, but our body reacts that way. And it wants to make sure that we don't do it again, so we don't risk the chance of, dying. Which, it makes sense, gold star, the human race has gotten pretty far from that. But nowadays, this repeating it over and over and over again really takes a lot of mental energy from us. And if we don't give, especially because mistakes are often, they can be small, and we kind of want to push them aside, but our brain will keep bringing them forward until we take the lesson from them. And if we don't take the lesson from it and, put it back, we got the lesson, cool, we can move forward now. That keeps replaying, and it just drains our mental energy. So we've only got so much mental energy that we can give out each day. And yes, we can work on bringing it up, whatever, all that kind of thing. Things bring it down, things bring it up. But replaying a mistake over and over again isn't really kind of useful. So we want to be able to move on from mistakes quickly so it doesn't replay over and over in our head. And there's this framework that one of the coaches that I follow, Stacey Bayman, she is a business coach for coaches. And she uses this concept in the form of evaluating processes that we do as coaches. So say she uses it to evaluate coaching consults. So if you wanted to work one-on-one with me, you do a coaching consult with me. Now my business side of things, obviously I'd love to work with you. And if for some reason you decide not to work with me, I'd like to work out what worked, what didn't work, and what I would do differently next time. So this concept, that's how I learned this concept. And I want to pass it on to you guys, the tradies, because that's who I'm marketing this podcast to, so I'm assuming that's who's listening. If you're not a tradie, then take this into your life anyway. So the concept is what worked, what didn't work, and what would you do differently. So these are 3 steps, 3 ways to process a mistake, or even literally anything. Even if you wanted to just do it better and it wasn't necessarily a mistake, you could use this process for that too. So we want to go through what worked first. What worked, you can do it. What did you do better than last time? So let's use the example, because I'm a mechanic, we'll use mechanical examples. Engine servicing, or servicing in general, right? So you service all your components, you want to check all your things, you've got a rough time limit / expectation on how long it should take you, right? So you go, what worked? I did it 20 minutes faster than last time. I ordered all the right parts. What didn't work? I missed some of the grease nipples, and the customer pointed it out to me. What would I do differently? Double check all the grease nipples and maybe look in the manual to see if there's any grease nipples, like a grease nipple map in the manual, right? So this allows us to process the mistake or the event to get it out of our head. We've done what our brain wants us to do. We've took a lesson from it. What would you do differently? And as apprentices, particularly, but even as we go on and we become qualified, we make mistakes. We do jobs that we haven't done before. We do jobs that we'd like to bring up quicker, which is something that this process will work for as well. So just over that again. What worked? What didn't work? And what would you do differently? You can run this through any situation. Mistake, something you want to do faster. But please, if you're listening to this podcast especially, but even people who don't listen to this podcast, who wouldn't hear this anyway because they're not listening, you guys, you want to be the best you can be. Whatever whether it's in whatever you're doing, you want to put your best foot forward. And we really want to make sure we have a clear head to put your best foot forward. We want to get these mistakes. We want to get the lessons out of them. We want to leave those repeating memories over there in the past. Some mistakes, I've talked about this before in previous episodes, when I broke the sump rail, when I hooked up with old mate and I really regretted that. You can do it for dating. This one time we spent all this time, there was a fork, it was called a load mac. So it's like those forklifts that go on the back of trucks. You see them on brick trucks and turf trucks and stuff like that. It had rolled and we were fixing it because it had rolled. Everything, all the panels were made again. And I was putting on the engine cover and I didn't have the gas strut on left yet. So I had it, I thought it was all the way past the pivot point. It mustn't have been that far past. A gust of wind come, knocked it over, it slammed down and it all cracked again. And we had literally just fixed it. I was like, well, shit. There was another time where I was rushing to do an engine rebuild and I snapped a piston ring. It wasn't quite on properly, and then when I went to try and put it in the liner, it broke, and that was a $500 part to get. It could go on and on. I don't know, even in classes where, you got a whole bunch of students looking at you and, your PowerPoint isn't working, or you don't have something prepared, or you can't explain something that they've been asking. Yeah. There's some of the things that I've done that, I worked out a process kind of similar to this to make it like an unofficial process, but what worked, what didn't work, what would I do differently is a really nice structured way. You can do it in your journaling, or your note taking. Say if you're doing, if you listen to episode 14, retaining information, I talk about taking notes and stuff like that. You can take notes in this format as well. What worked, what didn't work, what would I do differently? And you can even just evaluate your day that way. Yes, like I said, not something I made up. Got it from one of my coaches, Stacey Bayman. But yes, so now I'm rambling, so we shall wrap this up. So if you would like any help or support moving on from mistakes or any of the subjects that I've spoken about, or literally anything that you want help with, please join my Facebook community. It's free. It's called Tradeswomen Owning Their Power. Or if you'd like one-on-one support, or you're a business wanting to make the workplace better for tradeswomen and minorities, you can inquire through my website, louiseasaparty.com. And this episode is proudly sponsored by Middies. So if you're looking for comfortable, practical, and stylish underwear, women's boxer briefs might just be the perfect choice. And honestly, I do not wear anything other than Middies. I might wear, SheWear has some underwear as well, which is one of the other sponsors. So if I need to wear briefs, like just normal briefs, I'll wear my SheWear ones. But yes, otherwise I'm always wearing my Middies boxers. So I've got a discount code for you, which is Louise as a party, no dots or spaces, for 10% off. And I've got a link in the show notes. So if you could use that link to purchase, if you wanted to, you would be supporting the podcast in the process. And if you got any value out of this, which I'm assuming you are if you've made it all the way to the end of the podcast, please could you share it with your family, friends, on your social media? I'd love to get this podcast into the ears of more people so they can get these tips and, they can move on from mistakes quicker and keep being awesome humans. All right. I will see you guys in the next episode.